The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Hello and welcome back to Up the Cherries in all departments for this year's tier list. This year we're going to be doing the tier list slightly different. But first, before we explain about that, let me start introducing our guests. Our first guest is a guy that everybody from the channel, I'm sure, will know by now. He's currently facing our Cherry AM morning podcasts. And that is, of course, Mr. Ollie Hudson. Ollie, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, awesome, mate. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, all good. And thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
It gives me real pleasure to welcome back a guy that hasn't been on the channel for a little while, but he's now back. And it's great to welcome Manny back to Up the Cherries in all departments. And of course, list without Manny. So it's great to have you back, buddy.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Harrison, and a jolly good evening to Ollie as well, Mr. Hudson. And yeah, it is nice to be back, and tier lists are always good fun. The thing which I always have about tier lists is that, you know, you do a tier list on one channel and you sort of have these ideas of where the teams will be placed, and then all of a sudden you do one next week, you forget what you did the last time around, and everything sort of changes. And I just worry that, you know, I end up coming off like a bit of a flip-flop or a Fruit Loop. I just don't know, but it's always good fun, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I say, it's great to have you with us, Manny. It wouldn't be the tier list on this channel if you weren't on it. So it's great that you've managed to make it. So excellent to see you. And our final guest today is Doug from the Dugout Football Channel. Doug, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm looking forward to it. And hello to Manny, hello to Ollie, and hello to Craig in the background as well.
Okay, cool. So like I was just saying, we're going to do it slightly differently to the way we've done it before. So this year's tier list, basically, we're going to be having a team, 5 teams each. So I've already picked the teams at random. And we will place each team into a league place where we think they will finish. And then basically, if the position that you think the team's already finished is already gone, then choose the next best placement, and then we will debate it. So at this stage, when we're placing the teams, we won't be doing any debate or discussion. We'll be just literally placing the teams into the position we think they will finish or as closest to. So once all 20 teams have been placed, we will then debate the list. So firstly, we'll start with the top 6 and then so on as the grid has been broken down. It's been broken down slightly differently to how it's written there. But we'll break down the league and then we'll debate each part of the league and if we agree what teams are already there or if any teams need to move. So basically, the majority decision is also final. So if there is a tie 2 against 2, the member of the panel who had the team that we're discussing as one of their 5 from the random, it would be their final say. So that's basically how we're going to do it this year. We're going to do it slightly differently to how we've done it in years previous. So what I'll do now is I'll reveal the teams to us all, which teams that we will be placing in the league before we debate it. And this is the list. So Ollie will have Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Manchester United, Fulham and Spurs. I've got the joys of Burnley, Newcastle, West Ham, Arsenal and Villa. Manny has Chelsea, Bournemouth, Leeds, Brighton and Wolves. And Doug has Sunderland, Manchester City, Forest, Everton and Brentford. So that's our teams, which I've just put into the chat for you guys now. If you can see it there, I don't know if you can see it, whether it's popped up right. It's probably not even gone through right, to be fair. But if you can't remember, I'll let you know which teams it is anyway. So first of all, I think we're going to start with Doug, if that's all right with you, Doug. And we'll start with we're in the order that the teams are in. So Sunderland first for you, and then Ollie, then myself, and then Manny. So we bring the grid up now. Hopefully, if we can. Yes, there it is. Okay, so Doug, Sunderland first side for you. Where are they going to finish in the league?
It's always a tough one with the newly promoted teams because I think we've seen in the last couple of seasons that like all three have gone down simultaneously in the last 2 seasons. So I'm kind of debating whether or not all three go straight back down this time. For me, I'm actually going to say first one of answering. I'm going to go Sunderland just surviving.
Cool. So that's Sunderland there, just surviving. Okay, Ollie, over to you with Liverpool.
Yeah, I've got Liverpool as champions again. I have a tough time feeling that the recruitment that they've done this season and how strong their season finished last year with Arnie Slot coming in. They've now got Kirkes, Frimpong, Florian Wirtz. I don't feel the energy and the vibe coming off any other top tier team at the moment. I feel like they're going to secure it again, if I'm honest.
So, okay. So Ollie has placed Liverpool in the champions position. Okay, I've got Burnley. So Burnley into the relegated places, please, Craig. Okay, Manny. Is it Chelsea? Chelsea for Manny.
You really don't like Scott Parker, do you, Mr. Harrison?
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand perfectly. I mean, there's a part of me that thinks that Burnley might be a little bit stronger from the last time they were in the Premiership under Mr. Company. They've obviously got a different company head this time around. But anyway, back to me and Chelsea. I've got them finishing third. I know a lot of them are going to talk about how they finished the season in a very hot run of form and have won 2 trophies, the Conference League, and that bloated abomination that was the Club World Cup. But when it comes to the Premiership, I think Chelsea still have a great deal of inconsistencies they have to solve. I think there'll be some issues over the goalkeeper. I know that Sanchez did win the Club World Cup and Jorgensen did win the Conference League, but they will be looking to get another goalkeeper in and have that serious competition. Still a lot of doubts over the striker Nicholas Jackson. They will solve their problems, don't get me wrong, but I do not see them providing much of a challenge to Liverpool and Manchester City. So, third, easy.
Happy days. Okay. So, back to Doug with Man City.
Runners up for me. I think they've recruited really well. I think, Cherries is a really good signing. Reinders is a very good signing. Omar Mamouche will be like a new sort of signing. I know they got him in January, but he's been looking the real deal. And yeah, I just question marks over the goalkeeper. Whether Ederson or Ortega go. I think there's been talk that James Trafford potentially could be going back to Manchester City, which I find quite hilarious, but actually it actually makes a lot of sense as well. So for me, I think they're runners up this season.
Perfect. Okay. Ollie, Crystal Palace, the FA Cup winners.
Yes, this could be a controversial one, so I'm looking forward to discussing it. But I'm going to go 8th, so top half.
Wow. Okay.
Cool.
I have Mr. Howe's Newcastle next. For me, this season, I'm going to go 7th. So into there. Yeah. Manny. So you've got to be careful here with this one, Manny. Bournemouth.
Yes, only too well. Only too well.
Where do you think Bournemouth will finish?
Yeah, this is actually a very tough one because you know that you all are very close to my heart. And I was discussing this with a good mate of mine on his tier list, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, you've lost Huyson and Kirkes, but you will get two decent defenders, and you do have a knack of signing some players who turn out to be absolute gems. But the most important thing is that you've kept your spine of the likes of Kluivert. I think Tavernier might still be involved, I'd like to think. Still room for the likes of Lewis Cook and Adam Smith and, maybe one or two others. Evan Nilsson will still be there. And, of course, you've signed the Chelsea goalkeeper, Petrovic, who is probably unlucky not to be first choice ahead of both Sanchez and Jorgensen.
Yeah,
I would like to see you finish 8th and possibly earn entry into Europe if one of the top teams wins another trophy.
Happy days. Okay.
You don't need to tell me to be careful, Matt.
Doug, Nottingham Forest.
Difficult one. I think they're going to probably have a bit of a drop-off like they had towards the end of last season. But I don't think it's going to be as dramatic a drop-off as many people are suggesting. Obviously, they've got the Europa League to contend with as well. But I think they've kept the majority of their squad so far. Obviously, I think still question marks over obviously Morgan Gibbs-White, whether he goes to Tottenham or Manchester City, of course, and as whether or not they can strengthen after the money is with them in there. But for me, I still think they're in for a very good finish. I'm going to go for a top half finish for Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, Ollie, Manchester United.
I'm not going to give too much of an overview on this. You know my feelings on this. So it's better than last season, my prediction for them, and that is 12th.
Wow. Okay. Cool. I've got West Ham next. West Ham. Do you know what? I think for me, let's look at the teams. Just surviving. So I would say 15th, so above Sunderland.
Well, my next one's the easy one. I've got Leeds. And recently I read in the news about a potential bust-up, not a bust-up of sorts, but a little, tiff between Daniel Farke and Patrick Bamford. Basically, Farke doing a Terry Venables and telling the long-time striker that he's no longer a part of the team's plans. We all remember what Venables did to David Batty long ago. But the thing about Leeds is that obviously, they work so hard to try and get back in, and everyone, is delighted with everything, and the romance is back in the air. But somehow they always find a way to, slip up, trip over themselves. And there's a part of me that really feels that if Daniel Farke ends up, alienating more and more characters in the dressing room, he'll probably be one of the first managers to get sacked by December, and Leeds will end up in further trouble. I have got Leeds United finishing 19th.
Oh. 19th. Okay. Doug, Everton, new stadium. Are they going to have new stadium syndrome and struggle this season and potentially go down, or are they going to be pretty sound under Moyes?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think Everton have done really well under Moyes since he came back in. I'm liking the signings of obviously that Barry from Villarreal. I think he's going to be one to watch. They've obviously lost Dominic Calvert-Lewin. They've still got Beto. I think as well, managing to keep Jared Branthwaite is absolutely massive as well. And obviously another contract for Seamus Coleman, who seems to be just going on from strength to strength. They've got a really good backline, obviously Pickford and goal. This might be a bit bold, but for me, I'm going to go for a top half finish. I actually think Everton will do well this season. I'm going to go for a top half finish.
Right. Okay. Ollie, Fulham.
Yeah, so I haven't got Fulham really doing anything too special this season. I think they're going to struggle, not as much as some of the other teams. So I'm going to put them at 15th, 16th. I've actually got 16th here. So
Fulham. That's not Fulham. That's Fulham. Right. Okay. Cool. Well, I've got Arsenal. And I think personally, Arsenal are going to come fourth.
Top four again. Woohoo!
Better than a trophy. So Manny, Brighton.
Well, this is going to be a very tough one because the thing about Brighton is you see them over the years. They're this team that you really admire so much for the way they play. And I think ever since Hurtzler replaced De Zerbi, he sort of continued on the trend of providing some brilliant football against some bigger teams, but against some smaller teams, they always seem to have this nasty habit of underperforming, and that stops them from really fulfilling their potential. The sad part is that as much as we enjoy seeing Brighton play, there's a reason why they probably won't quite be able to crack into the European places, and more's the pity. I think the best they can hope for is to try and get maybe a cup run this season. I would like to see them, getting their customary top half finish, but with several teams, knocking on the door, I don't think they will qualify for Europe either. So I might possibly have them finishing in 11th, but they'll be above Manchester United once again.
Okay. Doug, Brentford.
Yeah, I mean, they've lost a lot of players. Obviously, Mbeumo is gone. It looks like they've lost their captain and Christian Norgard. And it looks like Vissa could be on his way as well. I feel sorry for them, and they've obviously lost Thomas Frank as well. I think Keith Andrews coming in is a very, very good, very big gamble. And we've seen in the past that these kind of appointments don't really work out what they want to be. I'm happy with the signing of Queven Kelleher. I think it was about time he got a move to be a number one. But unfortunately for me, I just think the amount of transfers that they've had going out is a real concern, and I struggle to see where the goals are coming from. Obviously, they've got Kevin Schade still signed up for next season. Igor Thiago, if he decides to, stay fit for the whole season, then they might get goals out of him. They've obviously got Jordan Henderson for that experience in the midfield, but I just struggle to see where the goals are going to come from. And I hate to say it, but I think it's their time to go down. I'm going to go relegation zone.
I personally could not agree more on that one.
Oh boy.
Spurs then, Ollie.
Yeah, so for me, it was between Spurs or Newcastle being the biggest flop this season. For a number of reasons, in my opinion, one or the other. And one or the other was going to get the 6th spot, and the other one was going to be a lot further down the table. And for me, Spurs got the 6th spot. So it wouldn't have been Newcastle there for me. It would have been Tottenham.
Cool. Okay. I've got Villa, haven't I? Villa will end up between 5th and 7th. They're qualified for Europe, I think, Villa. Which leaves Manny with Wolves.
Well, isn't this a real doozy? And the biggest problem is there's going to be some reshuffling on the table going on. I can guarantee you that. Yeah. I think I can have them probably finishing 13th. The problem is they've lost a couple of their players who have been really big players for them. Cunha, Ait Nouri, and who knows who else will be on their way. Obviously, the brilliant job that Vitor Pereira did after replacing ex-Cherries manager Gary O'Neill cannot be overlooked. But the thing about some of these teams who fight relegation is that they may survive the first season, but the second season might just be a step too far. And so the thing is, though, if Wolves do make some pretty good signings, maybe they can somehow maintain some degree of stability. I probably would have them finishing somewhere between 15th and 17th, maybe 15th, but that probably would be a little bit would not be possible given that those spots are filled already. So that means that they finish one place behind Manchester United in 14th, and I think they're going to have their sights on taking revenge over United this coming season in many ways. Believe you me.
Yeah, I know. Right, now we've placed the teams. Then we're going to start from the top and work our way down, and like Manu's just said, have a bit of a reshuffle. Now let's start with the champions. Obviously, I think that's probably the easiest place to start. And let's go to Doug first, obviously, as he is the Liverpool fan. Doug, Liverpool champions again this coming season?
I'm really looking forward to the new season. I think it's been one of our best windows for a long, long time. We've strengthened in the right positions. I think, obviously Kirkes from you guys. I think I think he's going to be fantastic signing. Frimpong as well, Ekateke as well, Verts. And well, if you believe the rumours that Mr. Isak wants to leave and potentially join us, then the potential of getting Isak and Ekateke on top would be absolutely amazing. But for me, I just think that the way that we've kept on to our players, kept Salah, kept Van Dijk, confidence will be high, and they will want to do it for Diogo Jota as well, who, I think everyone's still coming to terms with. I'm certainly coming to terms with as well. So I just think they'll be determined to win it, and I think we will retain it. So yeah, I'm going to go for Liverpool champions.
Cool. Yeah. Manny, do you agree Liverpool champions?
Yes, I would, because the thing about Liverpool last season, as Doug will agree, is that apart from Federico Chiesa, I don't think Slot made any real purchases, and he still was able to work with pretty much the entirety of Jurgen Klopp's squad and get them to the promised land. Now, of course, there have been a few outgoings, notably one outgoing, which, out of respect for Mr. Horne, I will not discuss. And Slot now has the freedom to try to mould the team into an image that he would sort of like. He's got some players that he would really like, and I'd like to see him really kick on with those new players and make sure they get an understanding with him. And obviously, expectations will be high. It's amazing that for all of Liverpool's dominance, I think the last time they won back-to-back league championships might have been quite some time ago. I don't even recollect if I would have been born then. Maybe Doug can fill us in on that. But it just goes to show that there will be some tough competition, and City will be, once again, eager to try and catch up. But coming to City, I don't see them catching Liverpool. I think they've obviously had to let go of quite a few players, and there will be some more to follow in the next few days, in my opinion. But I would believe that Liverpool might have just enough to keep some distance ahead of the rest of the pack. And it will, of course, be interesting to see if at any stage, if they fall behind, if they have the resilience to sort of come back. Because last season, I think Liverpool were ahead, top of the table, almost all the way through, if memory would serve me right. I'd like to think that Liverpool are made of stronger stuff now. Slot has strengthened quite brilliantly. And although they've let go of Kelleher, they brought in that Georgian fellow, Mamardashvili, who is quality. And I can see the competition heating up. And, of course, Freddie Woodman to sort of cover their backs and provide another homegrown talent, among others. Yeah, I can't see beyond Liverpool retaining their title. But... Doug, you're going to have to beware. Expectations will be high. So hopefully, for your sake, your team will get over the line again.
Yeah. Well, Ollie, you placed them there, so you obviously agree that they're going to be champions.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Just touching on some of the Man City points there. I think Man City are always going to be, gunning for the crown and one of the toughest teams to beat. Right. It's a continuous machine that rolls on with depth of the squad. It's always going to be a battle to beat them. And I also think Arsenal could also be gunning for the crown as well this season. They haven't had it yet. I feel like they've been yearning for it, and they're so close, bless them, but they still haven't quite got over the line, right? And they keep missing out, and they keep dropping points. So I think it'll be a real contest, but yeah, I do think Liverpool will top it for sure.
Yeah. Okay. We're all in agreement there then that Liverpool will be champions. Let's look at the top 4. So currently we've got Man City, Chelsea, and Arsenal. I think the top 4 race is going to be really interesting this season. I'm finding it a bit difficult where to place them, because you know what? I think Arsenal might be slightly higher than 4th, but Doug, the top 4 there, Man City, well, the 3 remaining places are Man City, Chelsea, and Arsenal. Do you agree with where those sides are there, or is there any sort of shuffle you would do, or is there anyone else you would take out of there and maybe place in their place?
I agree with the top 4, but I would swap Arsenal and Chelsea around. I think Arsenal, with the fact that they've obviously got their striker now, I think the pressure is really on Arteta this season. He has to get at least one of the big ones. It has to be the Premier League, it has to be the Champions League, maybe even like an FA Cup or a League Cup. Just a trophy, to show this Arsenal side can win things. My only concerns with Arsenal, some of the signings are question. Now, Kepa for me was looking really good in this Bournemouth side of all teams, and I think as well you've got to say the way that Bournemouth didn't get Kepa as a permanent signing, that was very, very surprising. Christian Norgard, I think, is a very good signing if you want a player to sort of just come in straight away. But for me, I think as a backup, it does make a little bit of sense. Madueke, I do not get this signing at all. One of the reasons is, why do Arsenal keep buying from Chelsea? That's my first point. Because I think if we go back to the list of players Arsenal have bought from Chelsea, or vice versa, I think you could probably get a list of 10 to 20 players. These two are meant to be rivals. The fact that they're doing business with each other is really baffling. But Gyökeres, look, I've got my question marks on Gyökeres. Look, I think Gyökeres is a good signing. I think as well it's a striker that Arteta had obviously wanted. I still find it funny he's obviously turned down Manchester United to go to Arsenal. But, and this is where I'm really, really concerned, it's whether Arteta can get over the line. It's whether or not he can just get that yard of pace from somewhere. Gyökeres didn't really lighten it up really the last time he was in the Premiership, and that was obviously with Brighton. He's obviously gone to Portugal. He's obviously gone and scored goals there. It's time will tell. Time will tell. I just think Arsenal at the moment, I think they are lacking just something. And I think if Martinelli goes, they're going to have to replace Martinelli. I still think there's question marks over the back 4. I know Miles Lewis-Skelly has obviously came in last season and done really, really well, but something's missing, and I don't know what it is. But if I was an Arsenal fan, I would be demanding Arteta to take the captain's armband away from Martin Odegaard, because I think last season it completely overshadows his performances. I think the captain's armband was a lot a lot on his shoulders, and I think it had a burden on his performances. So yeah, for me, I just think Arsenal are just going to fall short ever so slightly again. And it's not nothing to do with, obviously, the players that Arsenal are bringing in. Zubimendi is a really good signing. Obviously, Gyökeres is going to be a very good signing. Obviously, time will tell over that one. But obviously, they'll have Champions League. They better not throw away the cups, because every Arsenal fan will be obviously wanting them to have a really, really good cup run. I still have my question marks over Arteta, though. And I think if he doesn't get any of the big ones this time, I think he's gone.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, before we come to Manny, I'm going to come to yourself, Ollie. The three teams we're talking about here in City, Arsenal, and Chelsea. Do you agree with where those teams are placed?
That's me.
Yeah. That's to you, mate.
Yeah. Yes and no. Yeah. So it's a tough one. I've got down here that it's those top four. Liverpool are at the top. There's a little slash next to Liverpool where it says Arsenal as well, but I've gone with Liverpool. Part of me is wanting to say Arsenal to finish second, but I agree with everything Doug said. There's something that's missing every time. And I'm not an Arsenal fan, but crikey, there's been some seasons where I've almost been backing them to just get that trophy eventually, and it's been a tough ride for him, and for Arteta. If he doesn't get it this season, I think he's out. But I think it's going to be a struggle for City to. I don't feel it from them this season. I think, in my opinion, it'd be Arsenal second, City third, Chelsea fourth.
Yeah, but we'll leave Arsenal third, I think, because Arsenal are my team, so I'm keeping them third. Because I totally agree with the points that Doug's made, and I just think they are lacking that something. Let's come to Manny. Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea. Do they finish in these places, or will you elaborate a little bit more on the points Doug made, and Arsenal may finish higher or lower than where they are?
The thing is, Matt, I think I articulated well enough why Chelsea would finish third and City would finish second. And as an Arsenal fan, I can tell all of you what Arsenal are missing: a proper manager. That snide aside, look, you can't just take a look at the work that Chelsea have done over the season and over the summer and say that they won't want to challenge to try and get a lot higher in the league. And I think, now that Maresca's found his footing and obviously ensured massive credit in the bank with those two trophies, I see Chelsea just doing a lot more. But I will elaborate on Gyökeres. People have been very quick to sort of look at him and say, he's 27. He hasn't really, done the business at big clubs before. He's struggled to sort of find his niche. You've ever heard of the phenomenon of late bloomers? How some players just come into their own a little bit later than others? People often think that the reason why these late bloomers end up, only coming into their own at a somewhat more advanced stage is because they're slowly emerging from mediocrity, but that is a dreadful misconception. In many of these cases, they just weren't really given the right opportunities in their life to really excel and do as well as they could. Maybe they weren't trusted as much. Maybe they just didn't really have everything falling into place. And with Gyökeres, things fell into place for him at Sporting Club de Portugal under Amorim, and now he's managed to get into some type of form. He's now making the most of his talent. And he's now got Arsenal having signed him after a huge protracted deal, which never should have taken that long. Because if we were willing to just fork out over 50 million quid for Madueke, and I will briefly talk about the Arsenal-Chelsea rivalry to answer Doug's question, why we weren't willing to spend more on that striker we needed, it just boggles the mind. And the biggest fear that I have is that, having paid obviously more for Kai Havertz, Arteta now has to struggle to try to keep that Chelsea reject happy. And I don't know if that'll happen. And so one thing for which I will give Arteta credit is that he is at least smart enough somewhat to know when certain players have, done their dash and will no longer serve their purpose for to some extent. But he does keep a little bit of dead wood around for some reason. Don't ask me why. And I just think that even with buying Zubimendi and effectively reuniting the Real Sociedad midfield, that midfield does tend to look a little bit slow. It's not exactly very dynamic as such. We've already lost Thomas Partey. I don't want to elaborate on him any further. Now Declan Rice will have a big job to do, probably with Zubimendi in that double pivot, I would think. I just don't know if this team really has that much in terms of, gravitas, for want of a nicer word, to now really start competing. And let's face it, the only reason why they did a lot better than Manchester City last season was the City were literally in such turmoil. They were a team in absolute free fall, and there needs to be a cull at City. But the thing about them is that they will find their way back to somewhere near the top, and they will finish second, in my opinion. And I don't see Arsenal catching up to Chelsea. And it's ridiculous how we helped Chelsea out, because we effectively helped them in some ways, avoiding falling foul of PSR. And maybe it's because Arteta believes that, by getting those players, we do them a favour because we enable them to stay in London. And they feel as though they're coming into more of a family-oriented club. But at Chelsea, they win trophies. And you see, that's the thing which really angers me. We need to start winning trophies. Ollie said that we need a cup run. We definitely need to make sure we do as well as we can in the Champions League. We need to go one step further. Otherwise, we'll be talking about we beat another big team. But I just don't see this team learning from their mistakes. I don't see them evolving. And as for Miles Lewis-Skelly, unless he really, knuckles down and focuses on his football rather than, trying to score some points, with his behavior, I think he's going to have a tough season as well. Second season blues. That's why I see them finishing fourth. And my biggest fear is that if we don't get our act together, we could end up, dropping out of the top four. So fourth is really the highest I can hope for. Don't get me wrong. If we do finish second or third, I wouldn't be disappointed. But then again, we wouldn't have a trophy. So I hope you can understand. I may be a fan of Arsenal, but I've seen everything over and over and over again for the past few seasons. And I don't see very much that will convince me that, things are going to be even better this time around.
Right. Okay. Listening to that, do you know what? I kind of feel Manny's point is quite valid there. And I think that, guys, asking you all, do you reckon we should swap Chelsea and Arsenal with just what Manny's just said there? I personally think we probably should. But, Ollie, swap them?
It's a compelling argument, Manny. I'd have to agree. Annoyingly, yeah, I'd have to agree.
Doug, what do you reckon? Do we swap Arsenal and Chelsea after that argument there from Manny, or are you still certain that they're finishing up Chelsea?
I still think the top three will be the top three that is currently they've got it as. I can see where obviously Manny's coming from. Like Chelsea have obviously won the Club World Cup. I think as well, the one thing I would say about Chelsea though, they've obviously got Europe to contend with as well. They've just came off a really long season. I think they're now back in pre-season already, which is actually mad when you think about it. I like the signing Chelsea have made, I've got to say. I think Liam Delap is a really good signing. I think if they get Xavi Simons and Hato, I think that those two have been mentioned recently in the press. And obviously they got Gittins as well from Dortmund. But I just think the Club World Cup will have an effect on Chelsea. And I think that playing that 50, 60 games a season will just give them a little bit too much to do, and I just think they'll come up short. So for me, I still think it is Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Chelsea, that order.
Okay.
So
I'm just trying to think now. See, I've always said, and I was saying a lot last season, you stick a really good striker into Arsenal's side, and that could be the difference to them finishing second and winning the league. Maybe I'm just talking nonsense there, I don't know. But just watching the few games of Arsenal I did last season, I just thought you stick a Isaac kind of striker in there, and I just thought that he'd score for fun. And your point there is well, Doug, about Chelsea's long season.
Yeah.
Will that have a knock-on effect? I mean, they haven't had a holiday. They haven't had a rest, have they? I mean, that's just fact. But is there enough in their tank to finish above Arsenal? And I think, do you know what? Manny's convinced me. I really do think Manny's convinced me. So let's swap Arsenal and Chelsea, because I think Arsenal will finish fourth after that case there.
I should have studied law. Thank you very much indeed, Matt.
Well, it's annoying. It doesn't look right. Now that we've moved it, it doesn't sit right, but it is accurate. It is accurate. I don't like seeing it, Manny.
Yeah, but the thing though, Matt and Ollie, you probably are the best two to answer this, is that you lot actually did the double over us. I mean, it was bad enough that we came to Dean Court and had a shambolic defensive display as you lot ran right over us. But when you came to the Emirates, we started reasonably well enough taking the lead, but then once again defensively we were a bit of a shambles at the back. I mean, that long throw which led to the equaliser was Rory Delap-esque, and then David Raya basically proving that, like many other Spanish goalkeepers, his handling is absolutely below par. That particular season in many ways was an annus horribilis for us, because we lost games we should never have lost, and you could see from those games that, we had a bit of a soft centre. We just didn't really know how to manage the game well enough. And a big part of that has to do with a lot of Arteta's defensive ideas, because him asking Raya to come out as more of a sweeper, you'd fancy any people to sort of lob him a great deal. And that's one of the reasons why. Now, we have signed Christian Mosquera from, I think, Valencia, so we might be adding something to the defense. And of course, Kepa joining us means that Raya will, at least in theory, have some competition. But defensively, we've got to improve, and it will remain to be seen whether or not we can actually gel together as a unit. I do believe that in addition to the goalkeeping situation, left back will be, a potential weakness that can be exploited, and Doug will know that with Zinchenko as left back, Liverpool have exploited that weakness very well. In addition, William Saliba and Gabriel did not have the best of seasons together. Saliba, in my opinion, has dropped off alarmingly. So he definitely needs some competition. The defense has always been the bedrock of our previous seasons, but last season it fell away horribly. And the only reason why we finished second was because the other teams were just not consistent enough. So that's really where my fear comes from. And many of the other teams who are going to be competing for the top honours will have strengthened a great deal.
Yeah.
My 2 pence there.
Cheers, buddy. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And but let's move on to Europe now. So that's the top 4 places. Let's move on to the Europe places. So we're at capacity. There's 3 teams there. Doug, do you agree with Newcastle, Spurs, and Villa finishing in the Europe places, or is there someone you'd take out and swap around? I mean, how would you see those places finishing?
I would 100% agree with that list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I think people are taking sort of the Isaac news, obviously, for Newcastle fans are not taking it really well, obviously, but they still have a fantastic squad. Let's be honest. Livramento, obviously Lewis Hall, Tonali, who I think is just extra special player in that midfield game. You've obviously got Jacob Murphy, Harvey Barnes, Anthony Gordon. If they get Vissa, I think Vissa would be a very, very good signing. If they get Sesko potentially, he'd be another very good signing. I think Newcastle will be there or thereabouts. If it's going to be fantastic to see Champions League nights again at St James's Park. I think it's going to be really, really good. Tottenham for me are an interesting one. I think Thomas Frank, I really do like. I do think he is a very good manager. I think he will get the best out of these players. It'd be interesting to see how he does in the Champions League. I think Mohamed Kudus is a fantastic signing from West Ham. I think that is a really, really good buy from them. Still question marks, I think, over Son's future as well. I think the thing with Spurs, I think they have to keep the Mickey Van de Ven fit. I think if they keep him fit, then I think they'll have a good season. Still question marks over Romero's future. I think he will probably stay though, if I'm being honest. Pedro Porro and obviously Destiny Udogie in the fullback positions. Villa, I think it all depends if they keep Ollie Watkins. There seems to be a lot of interest from Manchester United about Ollie Watkins. But again, they've got a very good manager in Unai Emery to get them into obviously Europe again. So yeah, I think the list is there. Newcastle, Spurs, and Villa. I would 100% agree with that.
Excellent. Okay, Manny, I know you've got a big soft for Villa as well. Do they finish in these places with Newcastle and Spurs?
I've got a lot to say about Tottenham, believe you me. And yes, I do have a soft spot for Villa. And the thing about Villa, a lot of us are forgetting, is that, PSR and their evil tentacles have sort of tried their best to attack Villa every single chance that they can get, which sort of segues into what Doug was saying about the need to keep Ollie Watkins. Obviously, the loan signings that came in and who really helped them do as well as they did in the Champions League. They beat PSG at Villa Park, and potentially, for want of some poor refereeing, it could have potentially taken that tie to extra time and maybe could have gone through. And they really, won a lot of hearts during their run. But obviously, those loan signings had to go back. Rashford, of course, is now with Barcelona. Asensio has gone back to PSG, but I don't see him playing any kind of a role under Luis Enrique. I don't even think the poor bloke would even be now entitled to a Champions League winners' medal, given that he spent the latter part of that campaign on loan with the Villa. Disasi is gone. We've gone back to Chelsea. I'm not too sure necessarily if Ollie Watkins leaving the club would be that bad of a thing, because they've got this exceptionally talented Dutchman by the name of Daniel Marlin, who, of course, is the former Arsenal youth player. And this chap has the ability as well, not only to come in on the wing, but also with his pace and movement, he could, mind you, do a job as a striker by himself. He's also, he happens to be quite strong, definitely has a good shot and an eye for goal. The most frustrating thing about him is that for some reason or another, Emery saw it fit to not give him too many minutes. But I'd like to think that with this season, now that he somewhat established himself last season as someone who could come on and maybe score a goal, he could end up playing a lot more. So if Villa end up losing Watkins, it probably wouldn't be too bad, and they will find a way. The big issue I have is if Aston Villa end up being obliged to let go of their world champion goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez. And I'm not going to get into a debate with Dougie on who I think is the better goalkeeper between him and Alisson. I am him for that. But I will say that this Argentinian, who used to play for my club and also won the FA Cup with us before being arrogantly told that he was no longer needed, has been a big part of Villa's rise from being a team finishing near relegation to experiencing regular European qualification. He's been a big part of that. And now he's in a situation where, at his age, any serious offer for him would probably end up being accepted by the club. The problem is, does he go to a Manchester United team that literally are, just in a horrible situation, worse at any time under Ferguson before they started winning the league? Does he go over there, have only one game a week, and be a part of what, in my opinion, is a culture that is deteriorating and isn't in the for all the wrong reasons? Or does he stay for one more season at Aston Villa, try to redeem himself by hopefully winning a trophy with them, and at least, ensuring that his time in Birmingham doesn't end on a bad note? Because there's no way he would want that final match at Old Trafford to be his farewell to the club. And I do think that 5th, 6th, or 7th will probably be as good as Aston Villa will probably do this season. If they do finish in the top 4 and get into back into the Champions League, I'll be delighted. But their best hope of going back into Europe will probably be winning a trophy. And they are due one now. Having done so brilliantly under Emery, they also are in need of a big cup run. But if they lose Emi Martinez, having just signed this Dutchman named Bizot from Stade Brestois, ostensibly as their number 2, if they lose Emi Martinez, they can't replace him. So Aston Villa might end up deciding to let Ollie Watkins go and keep Emi so that they can at least balance their books in theory. And so with regard to Villa, if they finish 7th, that might only really be good enough for the European Conference League, and that will be a slight step down from the Europa League. So they're going to have to focus on getting themselves a cup run, and of course, seeing how well Spurs did, brilliantly, I must say, in winning the Europa League. Villa have to look upon themselves as favourites, joint favourites, or what have you, to win that tournament, and they can have no excuses for not reaching the final and winning it. I do think they will it'll be a huge fight between them and Spurs to see who will finish 6th or 7th. I think Spurs might possibly have a little bit more in them, given the transfers that have come in. But, the thing about both of our North London clubs is that the fish rots from the head down. We have the most horrible owners who clearly do not care about winning trophies, and they only care about financial statements. I think 6th and 7th will probably be just about right for both of those clubs. And as for Newcastle, I think they're still going to continue to go from strength to strength. I do worry, though, if they lose Isak because they've already seen Callum Wilson depart from the club. So if they lose Isak, I'm not too sure who could fill such a huge void. And of course, the Pope Dubravka debate will also continue to rage on. I'm surprised that the Serbian has still opted to stay over there. If I were him, I would have moved on. But I think Newcastle do have a lot about them to try to make sure they maintain that momentum. And any team that goes to St. James's Park will not find it easy. So, yeah, those 3 positions would be just about right, although I am hoping that Villa do finish above Spurs. I'm an Arsenal fan. I have a soft spot for Villa, and I do not like Tottenham Hotspur. But I do have nothing but respect for Ange Postecoglou. Good luck to you, mate. Sir, you deserve nothing but the best.
Okay.
And besides, he made Dominic Solanke a European champion.
That's true.
He did. That's very true. Ollie, do you agree with these places? Or would you shake it up a bit?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, kudos, gentlemen, because you've covered a hell of a lot of ground there in a very succinct way. So I love how that's come across. I do agree with Tottenham and Aston Villa. I think there's a number of things that were mentioned there about Unai Emery. The difference between the squads at the moment is Spurs are now going to be in a development stage and an evolving stage with Thomas Frank being there, bringing the discipline, structure, set-piece plays after Ange's kind of fluid, high-risk strategy, whatever kind of suited him on the day. But I think Tottenham are going to be a threat. I think that Tottenham will finish 5th, if I'm being honest. Aston Villa are steady at the moment, but still dangerous. With Unai Emery in charge, they're always going to be a problem, I think, especially for the coming years. With Ollie Watkins or without Ollie Watkins, I think that's an interesting topic of conversation. I don't think losing Ollie Watkins would necessarily be detrimental to Villa's progression at the moment, but let's see how that develops. The team I would push out of that is Newcastle. I think they're going to struggle. I think that from what I've learned in the last 24 hours is Isaac has been left out of pre-season training at the minute, so it's not looking great for him sticking with the club. I feel like they're going to struggle with depth in the squad. I feel they're going to... although Manny is absolutely right, it's always going to be a challenge for someone to go to St. James's Park. But I just feel like Newcastle this season for me are going to be the trump card, and they're going to be 9th, 10th, possibly 11th. And they're going to be dropping some silly points in some silly games, I've got a feeling. But yeah, so I'd go Tottenham 5th, Villa 6th, not Newcastle 7th. But I think I'm outvoted here.
Okay, hold on a minute. And who would you put in that place then? Who would you put in that place?
I think my other trump card here is Palace, and I'd throw Palace in there. I think Palace are going to do, although the cards are not written at the moment and the paths do not seem very clear for them, I think they're going to have a similar trajectory to Forest did last season. I think they're going to be battling for a majority of the season in a fairly healthy position. They've just lost out on their UEFA spot because of multi-club ownership. They haven't got the stress of the games coming up. I don't know. I've got a feeling about Palace this season.
Interesting. And yet, you'd expect them to hit the ground running after that FA Cup win. So, yeah, I see where you're coming from. Now, Newcastle, you see, the thing is I know, like, obviously the troubles they're having with, the forwards. Obviously, Liverpool have hijacked one of their interested players that they were interested in. What was the guy's name from Doug? What was his name? What's his name?
Hugo Ekitike.
That's him. So I know they were interested in him as well. So if they lose Isaac, but you know what? I just got some, with Eddie Howe. I just think, he will pull something out of the bag. And I think it, like Manny said, Newcastle will continue to grow. So I think we're going to keep it like that then. I think we'll keep it as it is. So that's the European places 5th to 7th. Now, before we debate the top half, the 8th to the 10th position, we've got one club over on that. So all I want from you guys is the name of the club, only the name of the club that you would move into the bottom half out of those 4. Just the name of the club. Ollie.
Everton.
Manny.
Forest.
Doug.
Palace.
Interesting.
Palace. Right, okay. See, I was going to say Everton.
Oh.
So that's actually a draw between all of us, isn't it? Okay.
You weren't going to say Bournemouth, though, Matt, were you?
No, of course I wasn't. No, absolutely not. So that's two for Palace. No, was that 2 for Palace or 1 for?
No, one Palace, 1 Forest, 2 for Everton there.
Yeah, Everton then. Okay, right. So top half 8th to 10th. Well, personally, the last 2 tier lists, we've been 1 place out with Bournemouth. I think the first tier list we did with Iriola, I think we said 13th and we finished 12th. And then last season we said 10th and we finished 9th. So, do we improve on 9th? That's the question. Ollie.
Yeah, so look, I don't want to sound biased, but I absolutely do think we'll finish 8th or 9th. I'm going to go with 8th because forever the optimist, talking Cherry AM every single morning, building the vision, understanding the dream of where we're heading at the minute. Crikey, it's going to be a super, super exciting season for us. So, yeah, I'm going to go for 8th and feel confident with it.
Okay. Manny, obviously you've seen the great season Bournemouth had last season. A lot of our players are really coming to their own and they're going to kick on again, I think, this coming season. So I do think we're going to fall short of Europe, personally. But 8th, do you think that's a fair finish for Bournemouth, or would you put Bournemouth lower?
I did predict, Mr. Harrison, that Bournemouth would finish 8th. And I know that Mr. Hudson has his sights on Crystal Palace finishing much higher, but let's not forget that they will also be in Europe next season via the Conference League.
Yes.
And let's not get any ideas that that's an easy tournament to win, because I know that West Ham and Chelsea did win it, but Leicester and Aston Villa did find it difficult. They reached the semis. And, it's funny how this could end up becoming a favourite tournament for, mid-table or slightly higher up from mid-table English teams. But Bournemouth, obviously, missing Europe will mean that they will want to try even harder to make sure they get into it. And let's not forget that there's always going to be a chance that one of the top teams could win another European trophy, which will mean going into either the Champions League or the Europa League. So Bournemouth might just be able to get in via the back door. And I just think that with a game a week, you'll have that advantage over both Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest, who are, of course, in Europe. With Crystal Palace, I do like their manager, Mr. Glasner. Quality. Europa League winner with Eintracht Frankfurt, and now Crystal Palace's first ever trophy winner. I do wish that he'd go to an even bigger club, and there was a part of me that was thinking that maybe he should have gone to Spurs instead of Tommy Frank to replace Big Ange. And as far as Forest are concerned, well, it's funny how, over the last few weeks, they've been the subject of some ill will. I don't know if it's necessarily their fault, and I don't really want to, get further into the murkiness of that. But obviously, I do think Nuno's going to find it a little bit difficult to try and get the team to perform the same way they did in the league last season. And as I've mentioned, with the added pressure of playing in Europe, it will be a very big test for them. So this order actually suits me just fine. I think Bournemouth will do quite well, finish in 8th. Crystal Palace will obviously try and do as well as they can to get a little bit higher, but 9th is probably just right. And I think they'll want to get one over on Forest by finishing one place higher than them in the league. So I was hoping that Everton would crack the top half, but based on, some thinking about everything, I think this might just be right.
Okay. Doug?
Yeah, I think Manny's spot on when he says Palace and Forest will find it tricky, and obviously Europe. I think both of them will. I think Bournemouth had a fantastic season last season, for sure. The only reason I put Palace sort of down, sort of in that 11-14, I worry about the potential exits of Mateta. And I think there's clubs sniffing around Munoz, which again wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Will they cash in on Mark Guéhi? That's another worry I have. And I think as well, when you look at their squad, they've obviously got Nketiah, they've got Sarr, who I think has been really, really good. So yeah, I've just got a feeling that with the fact that Palace and Forest have got European football, I think it will sort of boost Bournemouth slightly just to do well. And as we are obviously looking to shuffle teams about, I would move Palace down. So I would obviously have Bournemouth in that 8th place, because I do think that you will be on the cusp of getting Europe again. I do think Forest will finish 9th, because I think when we look at the fact that they're in Europe, they're in the Europa League. Champions League. Get ahead of myself. Thinking back to the 70s and 80s when they were last in the old European Cup. So I do think that there will be a bit of a drop off, and it's whether or not they can get used to playing on Sundays a lot, because I think that's what kind of had them sort of going ever so close to getting into that Champions League spot. But it was just the fact that they just came up ever so short. The only club I would obviously replace with Palace, and I absolutely hate them, but I do think they need to be in for a better season. And they've no excuses. They've no excuses. We know European football, and that's Manchester United. I think Man United finished ahead.
Agree. And I am so glad you've just said that. Sorry for interrupting you there, but I'm just so glad you said it. Because I would personally put Palace into the bottom half and move Man United to 10th. Because like Doug's just said there, this season they have got to have a better season than last year. Not just because of the size of the club and their stature and everything, but he has had summer now to bring in some of his own players and really make his mark. Whereas when he took over, it's always difficult, isn't it, when a manager comes in during the season sometimes to make their mark. There was obviously players there he didn't want. Obviously, look at Rashford, straight out the side. You know, he's brought players in now. So that is what I would personally do. I think Palace have to go into the bottom half, not where Man United are placed, but into the bottom half, and Man United need to go 10th. Is that kind of where your trail of thought is, Doug?
Yeah, I think the reason why I said Manchester United is because they've got no European football, so there is no excuse for them not to have a better season. Still question marks over obviously the goalkeeper. Like I've had my say on Andre Onana. He's obviously going to miss the start of the season because he is injured. So that Altai Bayendir is obviously going to be coming in as well. I know Manny's obviously mentioned about Emi Martinez. As far as I understand it, Martinez is actually staying at Villa. I think there's been talk that he's going to stay one more season. I think for Villa, which I think is absolutely huge in the circumstances for Aston Villa. But yeah, Manchester United, Cunha and Burmo, two very very good signings. It's not enough though. They do need to get a striker badly. Who that's going to be is another matter. I've seen people say that they need a Premier League experienced striker. I've seen people say Sesko should come in. For me, Manchester United just need a striker because Rasmus Højlund is not the answer. I am sorry, he is not the answer. £72 million they spent for him. He's been a big money flop. And actually, as well, I don't think defensively they're the greatest as well. And obviously Diego Leon has came in as well. Martinez, I think there's starting to be question marks about Martinez, if I'm being honest. Came in for a big money price tag from obviously Eric Ten Hag days at Manchester United. But he's had, is it like a very serious ACL injury? He's just coming back to the things. Got absolutely destroyed at Anfield in that 7-0. People will probably remember him for that game, if I'm being honest as well. But they've got to change the midfield. That midfield is so aging. It's unbelievable. Casemiro, like, how old is he now? What, 36, 37? They had Eriksen, he was like 33, 34. Honestly, Manchester United, for me, I think it's a real big season for them. And I honestly think, and maybe controversial to say this, but I think Ineos are hanging Ruben Amorim out to dry because they ain't backing him. And I think he's gone mid-season. I really do.
Okay.
I would agree with that, definitely.
So are we moving United or not? Are we moving them to 11th or are we going to move them into the top half? What are we doing?
I mean, I'd have to disagree on top half, but I wouldn't necessarily disagree with 11th.
Right, so let's place them to 11th at the minute then. Let's place United at 11th. Manny, would you agree with that or totally disagree?
You thought you got rid of me for one video. You were wrong. I just wanted to give a shout out to our two sponsors. Now, firstly, our Canva sponsor, which is Touchpoint Telecoms. Get in contact with Mark and the team at touchpointtelecoms.co.uk for all your business telecoms needs. And also check out Dental on the Banks at dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Here's a little bit about them now. You might recognise some AFC Bournemouth stars from now and the past.
I should be like you, Mel.
There we are. That's my bit done. Let's get back to Matt and the guys for the video.
Right, so like I was saying, I have no sympathy or respect for people who leave their former clubs in the middle of a season to join another club, especially if their previous club was doing so well, because after he left Sporting Lisbon, they started to drop a little bit before somehow making a bit of a recovery to win the Portuguese Liga. But it could conceivably be said that Amorim joined Manchester United and in a way made them worse, and maybe his tactics just weren't suitable for the players. They were extremely lucky to beat Lyon in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, and I remember what I was about to say. In the final, they were absolutely abysmal. They deserved to lose. And the big issue I have is that obviously there would have been some outgoings. I'm surprised that attempts haven't been made to let Casemiro leave, because Doug said it perfectly. He's a little bit slow, and maybe his style of play is more suited to European competition, but I just don't know if he can necessarily hack it in the Premier League anymore. And I think it's fair to say that his better days have all, just gone, and maybe he'd be better off going back to Brazil and playing in the league over there, just like Jorginho has done. And I really don't know if he's going to be able to get a tune out of the existing players that he has in the squad, especially if he's unable to convince them to leave or really make them shape up a little bit. So there's going to be a limit as to how far Manchester United will improve. And I think Doug's got it spot on when he says that Amorim could very well lose his own job by December or in the middle of the season. And again, as I've said, I would have no sympathy for him whatsoever. So maybe they'll improve, but I don't believe that they will get into the top half of the table. And let's not forget, the psychological damage that season has caused them and their fans, that's not going to go away all too easily. They couldn't even win a trophy, so at least that Europa League made Spurs fans happy and dreaming again, only for Levy to sack the trophy-winning manager. And yet the guy who failed is still in a job. Make it make sense, boys.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very, very good point there, Manny, to be fair. So top half, 8th to 10th, we're saying is fine. We're going to leave it at that. We've moved United to 11th because obviously, like the point Doug made and you've made, Manny, as well, that they'll have a better season than last season, but obviously not breaking into the top 10. So the rest of the bottom half, Everton, Brighton and Wolves. Now, personally, I think we've been a bit harsh on Fulham. I can't remember who placed Fulham there. I think did you?
Yeah.
I think personally, just my own point of view, that Wolves swaps with Fulham, but possibly is higher than West Ham, because I think Fulham won't set the world alight, but they can perform better than that, I think, personally.
Much
but
better.
What do you guys feel?
So I actually put them in 14th/16th. So it was either where Wolves are now or where they currently are. So it was one or the other for me. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you if you want to move them for sure.
Okay. Doug, would you swap those two teams around? Would you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think Fulham are a fantastic side under Marco Silva. There was obviously talk about potentially him going to the Saudi Pro League, but obviously that didn't happen as well. They seem to be getting a few wee links at the moment as well. So no, I think Fulham will have another good season under Marco Silva. I think as well Brighton. I think are in for a good season. Kept them the bulk of their squad. They've managed to get I think it's a Dutch defender in the Kruper that came in. He's going to bolster that back line. Losing Purvis to Stupnian though, I think is a massive blow. I think he's been fantastic for Brighton. But Danny Welbeck scores goals. And if you keep Danny Welbeck fit, you could keep him. So yeah, I think the only thing I would really swap in that list at this moment in time would be Fulham up and Wolves down.
Okay, Manny, do you agree with that? Swap them two?
Yes, I agree. I mean, there's a part of me that was thinking that maybe Ollie was being a bit harsh on the Cottagers because, they also do play some fine football, especially at Craven Cottage, where they are a tough team to beat. As long as they can keep hold of Jimenez, they would be they're going to be just fine. And obviously they've got a class goalkeeper in Bernd Leno, ex-Arsenal, I should know. And they've also managed to, for the most part, keep more or less the spine of their team. So just a little bit more tweaking. And there's a part of me that thinks that they should be a little bit higher up the table, but swapping places with Wolves would definitely not be bad at all. If they have to compete with the likes of Brighton and Everton and Manchester United, that's not going to be too bad. I hope that, for their sake, they also somehow manage a cup run. They didn't do too badly in last season's FA Cup before running into that juggernaut that was the Crystal Palace team. So I think, swap with Wolves and all is well.
Okay. Oh, let's swap them then. Let's swap Fulham and Wolves. Okay, so does Fulham finish higher or lower than Brighton?
I don't think they'll finish higher than Brighton.
Okay.
I can't see that happening. I can't see them having an overwhelmingly strong season this season. There hasn't been too much change in the strategy or what they're going to be doing compared to last season. I think Brighton will come out a little bit more stronger, a little bit more fight in them, a little bit more battle to do better than they did last season, dropping points in some silly ways. I can't see Fulham doing better than Brighton.
Okay, so does Brighton finish above Everton?
I would say yes. It goes Man United, Brighton, Everton, Fulham, in my opinion.
Okay. Manny and Doug, would you agree with that it finished Man United, Brighton, was it Everton, Fulham, did you say?
That's right.
Would you agree with that, guys? Or was it a case that you think something different? Manny, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I would actually agree. I mean, obviously Fulham are still going to try and play some good football, but I think, Doug's got it spot on that Everton could very well look to try and do a little bit better. And that block over there from 11th to 14th is really, a block where you feel sorry for the teams there because obviously they're going to try their hardest to fight and finish quite high in the table as they can. But in some cases, they may just not have the luck. The only exception, of course, being Manchester United. I never have any sympathy for them out of principle. But, I think Brighton have a lot more organisation about them. I think Everton are certainly going to look to try and fight a little bit harder. And Fulham are going to try, but I think they'll just marginally come up a little bit short. But, Fulham do not deserve to be in the 15th, 17th bracket. I'm sorry. No, they're far too good a team for that. The days of them fighting relegation on a regular basis, I think they're gone.
Okay. Doug, What's your views on that? Is it a case of swapping Brighton and Everton over, or how would you see this?
I'd keep the same list. I'd keep Man United, Everton, Brighton, and Fulham. Reason being, I think that Everton's new stadium could be hit or miss. We just don't know. But I think Fabian Herzler might get a bit second season syndrome potentially. As I've said, look, I think Brighton are a fantastic side. You know, Danny Welbeck does definitely score goals. James Milner's getting ever so closer towards Gareth Barry's all-time record. I'm sure he's going to hit that at some point, which will be fantastic for him. Personal achievement for him. And yeah, I just think Everton under Moyes, and I think people are really not taking into account that and Dye, since he's come into Everton, seems to be a real spot that to bring him in from Marseille. He's fantastic at Sheffield United. I think he's in for a very good season, and now they don't have to obviously rely on obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin. They've obviously got that Barry to come in. Beto is obviously still there as well, so. I'd keep it. I'd keep it United, Everton, Brighton, and Fulham.
Right. Okay. So right, we'll leave that half as it is. Let's look at the just surviving. Now, personally, I think the only swap I might do here is possibly West Ham and Wolves, but I would say I'm quite happy with that kind of positioning. I think West Ham have, really struggled to probably get the players in they need to really kick on next season. I think they're another club that, when you look at it, are probably quite frustrated with their owners, to be honest. Let's just put it out there. They obviously are. Wolves, they've lost some real key players, I think, but not enough to go down. Sunderland, I think with the players they've brought in, they've been very clever, and they have backed their manager. And I think this is the season now to break that cycle of the three that come up, the three go down. Obviously, that hasn't happened since we stayed up with Forest and Fulham that year, a few seasons back. So I think it's time to break that cycle. And I personally think the only team out of the three that's come up is Sunderland to do it. So I kind of agree with those three. I don't know on you guys' opinion. Doug, would you change?
I mean, like I think the thing with Wolves is that Vitor Pereira's done a very good job coming in. Steadied the ship ever so slightly. They were looking. Sorry, Mr. Beasley. I know you are watching in the background, but I have had my say on Gary O'Neill in the past, and he just didn't work out for him at Wolves. I think they weren't really going anywhere under him at Wolves, unfortunately. So for Vitor Pereira to come in, I think was a masterstroke at that time. I really worry for West Ham United. This is a team that is never heavily backed. Last season they were heavily backed when they had Lopetegui, and that was a real disaster. Look what happened. They fell apart. I'm not so sure Graham Potter coming in has really helped them improve. And if the talk is that they're getting Carl Molson to come in as a striker, then I feel really sorry for the West Ham fans, because you're clearly not getting backed by obviously it used to be obviously David Gold, Sullivan and Brady, GSB, but obviously it's Sullivan and Brady now. And again, Sunderland. Look, I've got a soft spot for Sunderland because obviously my uncle is a really big Sunderland fan. So born and bred. I'm actually going to see Sunderland against Hearts on the weekend. There, it's Craig Gordon's testimonial on Saturday, so I'm going to that one. So I'll get a look at this new look Sunderland that has to be said, because most of the players they're signing are African.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. So that would be my only sort of worry with obviously the Africa Cup of Nations in December. Obviously, we all know that Mo Salah obviously goes off there. I think Omar Mamouche is another one that will obviously go off to Egypt as well. So yeah, my only worry for Sunderland really is sort of African-based players that they bought. Look, I think that if they get Granit Xhaka, honestly, I think that is an absolute coup if they manage to get Xhaka. And I think I just look at the teams below them, and I think Burnley and Brentford, I think, are there just because Burnley, Scott Parker. I think that's the safest thing to say. Leeds are a funny one. Now, Daniel Farke obviously did well in Norwich. I am still amazed he is still at Leeds. I thought he would have been gone after the playoff final against Southampton. He wasn't. And obviously, Manny was mentioning earlier that there is a bust-up between himself and Patrick Bamford. It does look like Patrick Bamford's going to leave the club, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Leicester, I think, are actually in for Patrick Bamford, which would be a very, very interesting move, to say the very least. But my big bold thing, and I don't think it'd be too bold if I say this, I fear for West Ham. I really, really do. If they don't strengthen in the places that they do, they might be tempted to cash in on Jared Bowen. If they cash in on Jared Bowen, a mouthful of their goals from last season. They've obviously lost Kudus as well. Still question marks over what's going to happen to Mr. Paqueta, whether or not he gets a lifetime ban from obviously betting. It seems going really, really quiet on that. And as well, I don't think West Ham can really sort of shuffle the pack. Really, I don't think they can afford to. So I am very, very concerned for West Ham. I'm very, very concerned for them, and I would not be too surprised if they're in a real relegation scrap, and potentially they could be one of the big names to go.
Right, that is really interesting. So, okay, let's put it out there then. So we're looking, and I'm sure you probably agree with Doug's points there, Manny, with regards to West Ham.
I would definitely, because I mean, they've lost Kudus, who was one of their most important players. Maybe not quite as influential as Bowen, but definitely very important. It will be interesting to see if James Ward-Prowse will still have a future, given that for the first half of the previous season, I believe he was on loan at Nottingham Forest, if memory serves me right. And this is going to be a very interesting one indeed, because you think that after the horrors of his time at Chelsea, Graham Potter was starting to, find his feet in the Premier League again. But I think West Ham tailing away the way they did, and now, of course, we don't really see them having made too much in terms of progress, in terms of buying players, of course. And I think Doug mentioned that Callum Wilson might be heading from St. James's Park to the London Stadium. West Ham do have a happy knack of being able to convince some of these golden oldies to join them and end up having Indian summers with them. But I would definitely go so far to say that West Ham could very well be in trouble. The thing about West Ham, though, is that they probably, in all likelihood, will have just enough to stay up because, I fear for my good friend, Mr. Jenkins, a.k.a. Mr. B, the big Brentford fan. Obviously, that poor fellow has seen some of his best players leave. He's seen his manager leave to go to a club which, quite frankly, don't deserve nice things, in my opinion. And you also worry for Keith Andrews, who, of course, as a player, we all know, worked his way up wonderfully from the non-leagues to go on to play in the Premiership and also for the Republic of Ireland, if memory serves me right. But he was, of course, an assistant under Frank the previous season. I just wonder if he will be ready to make the step up. And if, for example, Brentford aren't able to plug the gaps that have been left by the departures of their stars, then they could end up in all sorts of trouble. Having said that, I wouldn't be too hasty to see them go down, because they have made some great purchases. Obviously, Coyote, who was on loan with them, has become a permanent signing. They've got this Dutchman named Milambo, who was quite wonderful in the European Under-21 Championships for the Netherlands. Of course, if he were Italian, they'd be singing, "Hey, Milambo, Milambo Italiano." That could be a new chant for him. Could have been, maybe. And they do have this happy knack of buying some players who will, do quite well. And I'm really shocked that Doug would predict that Brentford would go down, given that two ex-Liverpool stars are now in that team. I do think Kelleher's a quality keeper, definitely an improvement over the Dutchman, Mark Flecken, who Steve absolutely despised, I must tell you. And as for Henderson coming in, it's an interesting one, because, he obviously has many points to prove, and hopefully, for his sake, he can win, 3 for his team as quite often as possible. I do think that there is still something in him, but we have to accept that his career is definitely winding down, and he won't really be, as powerful as he used to be. I think he's going to rely a lot more on his leadership ability and how he can sort of slot into that midfield and how he can make the best of his position. He will be probably a lot more defensive, I would say. And this move really was geared to trying to secure his place in the England squad for the upcoming World Cup, should we qualify. And Tuchel clearly seems to favour him a great deal. But it's a tough one, and I'm torn actually between Brentford and West Ham, which of those two teams would go down, because the consensus is that Sunderland might end up staying up. And I wouldn't be too quick to dismiss the African contingent at Sunderland, because these African players who come in happen to be the most hard-working players in the Premier League, in my opinion. I mean, I don't want to be, stereotypical or judgmental or anything, but they really do seem to work exceptionally hard. The only issue I have is whether or not there'll be steps taken to make sure they integrate well with the squad and make sure they're made to feel at home. And that has to be something rather interesting. It will be interesting to see, of course, how that transpires. So it will be between Brentford and West Ham to see who goes down. And there's a part of me that actually thinks that maybe if West Ham don't get their act together, they could end up in some sort of trouble. I don't want to be in the bad books of my mate, Mr. Jenkins. I hope you can understand that. But there is something to the truth that maybe West Ham might find themselves in trouble. I've got no hope for Burnley. Kyle Walker's completely finished. Leeds United will definitely, I've said that they will get relegated in 19th position, but I would probably have Burnley and Leeds occupying 19th and 20th in either order. And so 18th will probably be between Brentford and West Ham. But listen, Sunderland also have to, get into gear. If they end up falling behind, they will also end up in big trouble. And people have been saying that this has to be the season that Sunderland break the cycle of, qualifying for the Premiership, only to end up going back down because they couldn't hack it at the top level. But it will remain to be seen if they can, especially, make the most of this new chance that they have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ollie's disappeared for a minute, but I'm sure he'll be back in a sec. Can't see if that's you, Ollie. Can't see you, mate. Right, so West Ham then, are we moving them into the relegation zone, or are we going to keep them where they are? What do you think? Then we can move on to the relegated sides. I think... Okay, let's put it this way. Are Leeds stronger than West Ham?
No.
No?
Depends really what Leeds do in the transfer window. But I think on current form, or currently in the transfer market, I'd still want West Ham's squad over Leeds at the moment.
Okay. So Sunderland higher or lower than West Ham?
I think they stay there.
Perfect. Right, let's look at the relegated sides then. So Burnley, Leeds, and Brentford. I personally, I totally agree with this. Bottom three. I will agree with it. Reasons being, Burnley. Yeah, I know Scott Parker's there, but not just for that reason. I don't think they've really signed the players that will keep him in the league. It's just my own personal opinion. There's still a lot of talk about Trafford going.
Yeah.
And that'd be a big blow for them. Leeds, for me personally, is more about their manager. I don't think he's going to see the full season out, personally. I know there was a lot of talk at the beginning of pre-season, at the end of the season, wasn't there, about them actually looking, even though he got promoted as champions, they were looking at his position, weren't they? So I think on that ground, if they don't hit the ground running, they're going to struggle. Brentford, obviously they came up the season before we came back up. Thomas Frank, has built a fantastic club there. You can't take nothing away from Thomas Frank. And I know they've got a really good reputation for promoting from within. And obviously that's worked for them. Keith Andrews coming in. I don't put them in the relegation zone purely on that. I think it is purely on the amount of quality that they've lost. Now, there's a lot of talk about Bournemouth being picked apart. We've lost Dean Howson. We've obviously lost Kirkes to you guys at Liverpool. But really, our squad hasn't been what I would call picked apart. I think Brentford have lost a lot of quality. And I think if, is it Wisa? He's linked away now to a couple of clubs, isn't he? I think if they lose him, I think that is a massive, massive job for Keith Andrews to do. And I just don't think that they will stay in the league. But do they finish in these positions? Over to you two.
I would say Brentford 18th, Leeds 19th, Burnley 20th.
Yeah, so we'd swap Brentford and Burnley.
I would swap Brentford and Burnley. The reason I would say that Burnley for me are, obviously, sorry Dan, you are watching that, but for me they've become a bit of a yo-yo team, a little bit.
Yes.
And again, I agree with what you've just said about Leeds. The fact that they were looking at managers to potentially come in ahead of Daniel Farke just before the end, or just after the season ended, says a lot. They don't trust him. I think as well when you look at that, they've really. I don't really back them. Like some of the signings that they made, and Anton Stack, I've never heard of him from obviously Hoffenheim. So Leeds could be a very, very interesting one if they can get the goals of obviously Pirlo and Dan James, of course. Then they might do well. I see that Melly is still there. I would be very surprised if he is not there by the start of the season. Because for me, Melly is one of the most overrated goalkeepers I think I've ever seen. Last season in the Championship, he was mistake galore. And just as I was obviously saying of the Brentford, I know Manny's obviously done Kelleher as well. The problem with what Kelleher had at Liverpool, he wasn't doing a lot. Like if Liverpool were like defending Leeds really, really well, he wasn't really sort of coming up and like having so much to do. The fact that he's at Brentford now, he's going to have a lot more to do. And I just think it's the outgoings for me that just has Brentford in the relegation zone for me. So yeah, I would say Brentford 18th, Leeds 19th, and Burnley 20th, because just just have a feeling for Brentford this season. But as I said, Leeds could easily surprise us. They could easily surprise us. And like as I said, like another big name like your West Hams and Wolves, they could be right in there. I think relegation is going to be very, very interesting to see next season. And it certainly is between, I would say, 6 or 7 clubs to go down next season.
Yeah, no, that's a fair shout. And just before we come to Manny for the last word on the relegated sides, before we wrap up, it doesn't look like Ollie's going to be able to come back and join us. So he said Wolves, Sunderland, West Ham. So he would just swap, but we're keeping it as that. And he's actually gone for exactly the same as what we've got there. He's gone for Brentford, Leeds, and Burnley. So, Manny, last word for yourself before we wrap up. Like I say, I totally agree with the relegated sides. But yourself, are you agreeing with this, or would you disagree, or would you swap them around? What's your opinion on this?
I still disagree with Brentford being relegated, if only because, it's in Brentford's DNA to sort of have a kind of a hard-working, ethos to their play. Yes, the points have been made that the outgoings could hurt them, and of course, one of those outgoings ended up being one of my incomings, a certain Christian Norgard, who's come over to join us. But look, they have made some signings as well. They have managed to, secure some players. Maybe a case can be made that they probably haven't been able to do quite as much to stop the outgoings. I think another one, and I think this might be up Doug's alley, Aaron Hickey, the Scottish fullback, has joined the Coppa Italia winners Bologna, who'll be playing in the Europa League, if memory serves me right. So there is a part of me that still thinks that Brentford will somehow find a way, because they're the sort of club that, if they lose a few players, they always find a way to make up for that loss and end up playing quite well. But I do get where you all are coming from when you say that just the fact that they've had so many players taken away from them will count against them. But let's also not forget that in September there's another transfer window. They could make some other signings that could possibly help them out in some way or another. There's still a part of me that would like to possibly exchange Brentford and Sunderland, maybe, because I just think that the expectations might be a little bit too high. But I realise that with the majority ruling in favour, my words have no standing as of now. So I think it's fair to say that this tier list should be what is done and dusted. I like the work that we put into this. Of course, as I've said, in my mind, I'd like to see a few teams interchanging their positions, but, that would be, splitting hairs at this point in time. So I would like to say that we've done a good job so far, but hopefully, my mate Steve Jenkins won't see this, because he's going to be fit to be tied.
Yeah, Mr. B, he's a great guy, Mr. B. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it's all just predictions and guesses. I mean, this is probably going to be completely wrong, and we'll look back on this in sort of 9 months' time and be like, wow, how we couldn't have been any more wrong. But yeah, like Manny's just said there, that concludes the tier list, and this is how it looks. So the tier list for the 25-26 season is Liverpool champions. Top 4 will be completed by Man City in second, Chelsea third, and Arsenal fourth. The Europe places will go to Newcastle, Tottenham, and Villa. The top half will be completed by Bournemouth, Palace, and Forest. The bottom half will be propped up by United, Everton, Brighton, and Fulham. And those just surviving will be Wolves, West Ham, and Sunderland. And the relegated sides will be Brentford, Leeds, and Burnley. So Yeah, thank you to both yourself and obviously Ollie as well. Ollie's internet is gone, so unfortunately he couldn't join us there for the last bit. But thank you, Doug, for joining us. It's been great to have you with us tonight. Got much coming up on the channel?
Yes, I do actually. I am starting a new Premier League panel show very, very soon. Obviously, days to be decided because obviously there is a lot of like Monday night games coming to this season. So it's either going to be on a Monday evening at 7, or it's going to be on a Tuesday at 7. Again, that will sort of determine obviously when Champions League games are as well. But yeah, bringing a new sort of Premier League panel show from the start of August. So looking forward to that.
Excellent. And yeah, guys, if you haven't subscribed to Doug's channel, it's the Dugout channel. We'll put the link into the description below. And you can go to that channel and give it a sub. Manny, great to have you back. It's been a long time no see, but hopefully we'll have you back on again soon.
Yes, you will, Mr. Harrison, more often than I have been previously. Sadly, technical issues dictated that I couldn't join you as frequently as I would have liked to, but I am looking forward to coming back on a more regular basis, and there will be a lot more activity, obviously, with Up the Cherries in all departments. I'm looking forward to catching up on as much of that as I can. And I'm also going to try to catch Doug's new panel show. That should be interesting.
Yeah.
And I also would like to say I hope you enjoy Craig Gordon's testimonial. Let me just say right now that having seen Jim Leighton and Andy Gorham play, Craig Gordon has to be the most talented Scottish goalkeeper I've ever seen. And had it not been for those horrific injuries, he'd already have 100 caps by now. So I hope you enjoy that. And I'm just happy to be, like I said, back online and on YouTube doing some stuff with all of you lot. And I can't wait for the next time. Missed you all.
Excellent. And yeah, we can't wait to have you both back on at some point during the season. But until the next one, up the cherries, and see you next time.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.